The invisible architecture of control. Most men are blind to the fact that power dynamics aren't established through massive arguments or dramatic breakups. They are built brick by brick through casual conversation. You likely believe that playing games only happens when she goes cold, stops replying, or starts posting pictures with other guys to make you jealous. But the truth is far more subtle and much more effective. By the time you notice the distance, the game is already over because she started laying the groundwork weeks or even months prior. She didn't use force or aggression. She used the hidden language of leverage. This is a psychological framework where she introduces four specific, seemingly harmless words into your daily interactions. Because these words sound like normal life updates, you never stop to question them. You take them at face value. And that is precisely why they work so well. You aren't being hit with a hammer. You're being guided by a silk thread, and you don't even realize you're being pulled off center until you're already spiraling. If you have ever spent your evening staring at a red receipt, rereading your last three messages, or trying to solve the puzzle of why she seems different today, you have already fallen into the trap. Those moments of overthinking and that desperate hunger for clarity aren't accidents. They are the intended result of this linguistic shaping. These words weren't spoken to keep you informed about her life. They were spoken to see how you would react to her lack of transparency. Almost every man has heard these words, but almost none understand the underlying data she is collecting. She isn't just telling you how she feels, she is measuring your threshold for uncertainty. She is gauging how much of your own peace of mind you are willing to sacrifice just to stay in her orbit. This is the moment where she stops being a partner and starts becoming a predator of your attention. And it all happens under the guise of casual, everyday chatter. Language is the quietest weapon in a woman's arsenal because it leaves absolutely no fingerprints. It is the perfect crime. When a man sees a woman pull away physically or act out, he has something concrete to point to. He can say, "You're being cold," or "You're acting different." But when she uses specific framing words, she maintains total plausible deniability. She can influence the entire temperature of the relationship without ever having to take responsibility for the shift. Most men are busy looking for signs in her actions, watching the clock on her replies or noticing a drop in her warmth. But they completely miss the fact that behavior is usually the last step in the process. Long before her actions change, her vocabulary changes. She begins to use framing to bend your interpretation of reality. By choosing one specific word over another, she subtly forces you to operate within an emotional frame that she controls. Think of framing as the invisible boundary of a conversation. She isn't telling you what to think, she is telling you what to think about. She drops these words softly and casually, as if they mean nothing at all. But inside those tiny syllables is a high stakes psychological test. She is asking a silent question. How much can I steer you without ever having to push you? She wants to see if you will chase her into the fog she just created. If she can get you to compromise your standards, ignore your gut feeling, or wait around for a maybe just by using a simple word, she knows she holds the leverage. She is testing whether you are a man who is anchored in his own reality or a man who is easily tossed around by the emotional tide she creates. Once you understand this hidden language, you stop being the victim of the game and start seeing the board for what it really is. You realize that her words aren't just descriptions of her day. They are the tools she uses to see if you are a leader or a follower. The deceptive trap of the friend label. The word friend is perhaps the most dangerous word in the female vocabulary because it is the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. When she looks at you with a soft smile and tells you how much she appreciates your friendship, your brain registers it as a win. It feels like you're gaining ground, building trust, and getting closer to her heart. But in reality, this is the sharpest, most surgical downgrade a woman can deliver. It is a strategic relocation of your value. By calling you a friend, she is officially filing you away into a category where you are deemed safe, but not desired. You have become someone she values for your utility, but someone she hasn't chosen for her intimacy. You are essentially being handed a participation trophy in a game you were trying to win. And the worst part is that most men accept it with a smile, not realizing they've just been evicted from the territory of attraction. When you accept the friend label, you are unknowingly signing a contract to provide high level emotional benefits without receiving any emotional commitment in return. You become the man who answers the late night texts, the man who listens to her vent about her stressful day, and the man who offers the perfect advice when her heart is broken by someone else. You are providing the emotional labor that a boyfriend would provide, but you are doing it for free. To her, you are a cushion, a soft place for her to land when the world is harsh. The problem is that no one feels a burning passion for their sofa. They appreciate it, they rely on it, and they use it to relax, but they don't pursue it with desire. By being too available and too supportive, you aren't building a romantic foundation. You are simply building a comfortable waiting room where she can sit until the man she actually wants shows up. The most common mistake men make is believing the lie that attraction grows from service. You think that if you just listen a little longer, help her out a little more, or be the most understanding guy she's ever met, she will eventually wake up and realize you were the one all along. This is a total myth. In the real world, attraction doesn't grow from being helpful. It grows from distance, mystery, and self-respect. When you become her emotional therapist, you are actively killing the sexual polarity between you. You are becoming a peer or a confidant, which are roles that exist on a flat, neutral plane. To create attraction, there must be a mountain and a valley. There must be a sense that you are a man with your own structure and your own life, not just an extension of her emotional needs. Every time you absorb her drama or let her complain to you for hours, you are erasing the very masculine edges that would make her see you as a romantic partner. Breaking out of this trap requires a radical shift in your behavior, and it's the one thing most men are too afraid to do. You have to step out. You cannot love your way out of the friend zone, and you certainly can't negotiate your way out of it. You have to stop playing the role she assigned you without your consent. This means you stop being the 24/7 support system. You stop being the guy who is always there to catch her when she falls. You don't do this to be mean or spiteful. You do it to restore your own dignity. When you suddenly remove that cushion of constant availability, something powerful happens in her mind. The comfort she took for granted disappears, and the void you leave behind creates a new kind of tension. For the first time, she is forced to look at you not as a tool for her convenience, but as a man with boundaries. A man who respects his own time enough to not spend it on someone who doesn't prioritize him. By stepping back, you force her to reevaluate who you are, and you finally stop being the place where she unloads her emotions and start being a man she actually has to notice. The infinite loop of soon. Soon is perhaps the most deceptive word in a woman's vocabulary because it sounds like a promise while functioning as a shield. It is a sophisticated stall tactic designed to keep you emotionally tethered without requiring her to actually show up. When she says, "Let's grab a drink soon," or "I'll be ready to date seriously soon," she isn't giving you a timeline, she is giving you a sedative. This word is specifically engineered to pacify your frustration and silence your questions. It acts as a psychological placeholder that keeps you invested in a hypothetical future, making you overlook the cold reality of the present. Because the word implies that something good is just around the corner, you stick around, waiting for a day that never actually appears on the calendar. You become a passenger in a car that isn't moving, staring at the horizon while she keeps her foot firmly on the brake. At its core, soon is a form of temporal delay used to manage your expectations and maintain her leverage. She uses this word because she doesn't want to invest her time or energy in you right now, but she also isn't ready to lose the validation and attention you provide. You have become her emotional reserve. the backup plan she keeps on ice in case her primary options don't pan out. By feeding you tiny crumbs of hope, she ensures that you stay parked and available. The danger for you is that hope without evidence isn't loyalty, it is a form of self abandonment. Every time you accept soon as a valid answer, you are telling her that your time has no value and that your schedule is entirely dependent on her whims. You are essentially volunteering to be a character in a story she hasn't decided to write yet, wasting your best years waiting for a maybe to turn into a yes. To break the spell of soon, you have to stop listening to her words and start looking at the calendar. A real future is not a vague concept. It has a date, a specific time, and a physical location. If it doesn't have those three things, it simply doesn't exist. It is a ghost. When a woman is truly interested in a man, she doesn't gamble with the clock. She secures it. She doesn't want to leave a man she desires in a state of uncertainty where another woman might take her place. Therefore, the moment you hear the word soon, you must recognize it as a signal that she is uninvested. You break the cycle by demanding clarity through your actions, not through a confrontation. You don't argue with her about her schedule. You simply stop waiting. You stop holding space in your life for a promise that has no expiration date. The shift happens the moment you stop accepting vagueness as a legitimate form of communication. When you stop being the man who can be indefinitely delayed, you instantly command a different level of respect. You move from being the guy she can get to eventually to the man she has to choose right now or lose forever. By withdrawing your attention from her soon and placing it back onto your own goals and momentum, you force her to make a real decision. If she wants to be in your life, she will find a way to replace soon with Tuesday at 7 o'clock. If she doesn't, she will disappear. Either way, you win because you are no longer wasting your life in the waiting room of someone else's indecision. You are a man with a destination, and you don't have time to wait for someone who is still looking for their keys. The shift from reacting to leading. The most profound realization you will ever have in your dating life is that these four words, busy, maybe, friend, and soon, have nothing to do with her schedule, her intentions, or her life circumstances. They are diagnostic tools. Every time she drops one of these words into the conversation, she is effectively placing a mirror in front of you to see how you respond to uncertainty. She is watching to see if you will flinch, if you will panic, or if you will immediately start rearranging your entire life to solve the riddle she just created. If you hear maybe and your response is to try harder, or if you hear busy and you begin to over-explain your own value, you are failing the test. You are signaling to her that your emotional state is entirely dependent on her approval. You are showing her that your value isn't fixed. It's a fluctuating currency that she controls with a single text message. By adjusting your behavior to accommodate her inconsistency, you aren't being patient or understanding. You are showing her exactly how low you place yourself in the hierarchy of men. You must understand that in any dynamic, control isn't something that is violently taken away from you. It is something you voluntarily surrender the moment you lose your center. The power shift happens in the silence. It happens in the 4 hours you spend wondering why she hasn't replied. And it happens the moment you decide to send that follow-up text just to see where things stand. The moment you stop flinching at her silence and stop over-investing in her mixed signals is the exact moment the power shifts back into your hands. You have to realize that respect is not something you can negotiate or beg for. Women do not respect a man who looks to them for certainty, because a man who needs a woman to tell him he's okay is a man who cannot lead himself. True respect is reserved for the man who carries his own certainty within him, a man whose mission, standards, and self-worth remain unshaken, regardless of whether she says yes, no, or maybe. The transition from reacting to leading requires you to stop being a passenger on her timeline. Most men spend their lives waiting for a woman to give them the green light so they can finally feel confident. They wait for her to be ready, they wait for her to be less busy, and they wait for her to decide what they are. This is a reactive existence. To lead, you must anchor yourself into your own standards and let the world revolve around you for once. You set the pace, you define what is acceptable, and you decide what your time is worth. When you establish a clear boundary and stick to it, you create a vacuum that she must choose to fill. You aren't being aggressive or demanding. You are simply being a man with structure. You are saying, through your actions, this is the path I am walking. You are welcome to join me, but I am moving forward regardless. When you finally make this shift, the outcome becomes irrelevant because you've already won. Once you are anchored in your own value, one of two things will happen. She will either recognize the strength of your character and rise to meet your standards, or she will fall away because she realizes she can no longer manipulate the dynamic. If she rises, you have a high-value relationship built on mutual respect and control. If she falls away, you have saved yourself months of wasted time and emotional energy on someone who was never going to choose you anyway. Either way, you remain the architect of your own life. You are no longer the man who is waiting to see what happens. You are the man who knows exactly who he is. And that internal certainty is the most magnetic force a man can possess. Stop reacting to the games and start setting the rules.